The people that fall into despair, they're falling towards despair, even though they haven't really been hit that hard yet. It'll get worse though, because they're gonna, just like we're gonna be hit harder, they're gonna be hit harder. They're not a ruling class. They're the small bourgeoisie, the little artisans, and the typical petty bourgeois movement compounded of ideological reminiscences, the good old days.
Right.
That's reminiscent. What do they think about? Yeah, the good old days. For some of them, the good old days when black people weren't around here.
That's one of the 14
and psychological resentment.
Yes, yes.
And psychological resentment, which is kind of diffuse. They resent everything and everybody. So, but we can go on. But Kim, you want another question? So, please.
Yeah. Right here in Detroit, where the demoralizing of it is, we've been demoralized by having our livelihood struck at and pretty much taken away, and why it's so hard for people to handle. You know, we've been the society's brainwashed us with, oh, just follow the American dream, you get it if you do all this, you do everything right. And now that that's basically been shown to be a lie, people are mad as hell because they're like, okay, I did everything right, they were supposed to, I learned how to do this, and now I have nothing, you know, like what did I do wrong? And we want society has not prepared people to deal with the fact that, hey, your American dream might be snatched away one day. Right. It's like the world got put out from under everybody. So that's why they're mad as hell. But like you said, they don't know that there's another option like socialism or communism because that's been demonized for so long. They have never even considered that as an option. Right. So that's why, you know, the mad as hell, the government,
the programming,
yeah, that's right. So they're programmed not to see anything else as an option. And just get mad at the wrong people, you know, like
it's one of the points, programming, how they program you to think a certain way.
Just like, for example, when Hitler's right men said, right-hand men said, I forgot who his name was, the woman, something like that, but he said, if you repeat a lie long and hard enough, people will eventually believe you.
Right.
You know? So,
and just this last sentence, too. At some point, this mass movement must, to continue, start getting financial and political support from the big capitalists themselves. Otherwise, it never becomes significant, not seriously significant. Okay, maybe we should read number 5, yes, Roberto. Please. Yes, I'm sorry, Kevin. Oh.
If the fascist dictatorship is to fulfill its historic role, the workers' movement must be ground down and beaten back before the seizure of power. But this is only possible if, prior to the seizure of power, the scales have tipped decisively in favor of the fascist bands and against the working class. The rise of the fascist movement is like an institutionalization of civil war, in which either side, regarded objectively, has a chance of success. This is the reason, incidentally, that it is only under very special, quote, abnormal, unquote, circumstances that the big bourgeoisie favors and finances such experiments. From the outset, there is a definite risk in such all-or-nothing politics. If the fascists succeed in paralyzing, demoralizing, and smashing the enemy, the organized workers, their victory is certain. But if the workers' movement strikes back successfully and seizes the initiative for itself, then it can decisively defeat not only fascism, but also the capitalism that spawns it. This is so for technical, political, as well as social political and social psychological reasons. At first, the fascist bands organized only the most resolute and desperate parts of the petty bourgeoisie. The part, quote, gone mad, unquote. The petty bourgeoisie masses, as well as the unconscious and unorganized part of the wage workers, especially young workers and white-collar youth, will normally waver back and forth between the two camps.
Yeah.
Wow. They will be inclined to join the side that demonstrates the greater boldness and decisiveness. They want to bet on the winning horse.
Yep.
Historically considered, the victory of fascism expresses the inability of the workers' movement to resolve the structural crisis of late capitalism in its own interest, and to its own ends. Such a crisis always at first offers the workers' movement a chance at victory. Only if it does not take advantage of this chance, because it is misled, split, and demoralized, can the battle lead to the triumph of fascism.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Because this shows a little bit why we're not at that stage yet, because the fascists generate a response, and the ruling class is nervous about having that battles going on, because if the fascist attacks against the working class, unions, community groups, whatever, stimulates a fight back. That fight back can not only be defensive, it can at some point turn into an offensive, and that threatens the ruling class itself. That's why the fascism isn't just on, they don't just put that out there every day of the week.
But don't you think crime is a fight back to a certain degree?
Crime, well, certain crimes of survival are a way to try to survive, and desperate people do things. But it's, yes, it's a response, but I wouldn't call it a fight back in the sense that it's not an organized political resistance. It's a desperate attempt to survive, and that's, yes, and we sympathize with people, you know.
To survive is desperate. I mean, you know,
Right.
everybody is fighting to survive.
Right.
Well, no matter what situation you might be living in. And so I'm just saying that crime, you know, I think that because of the repression and the fascism that is perpetrated against the people, that is a byproduct or a symptom of crime is a symptom of, I think, of fascism. You get people going mad.
Yeah.
You know, it drives people to be where they gone mad. You know, to me.
I understand what she's saying too.
Go ahead.
I do. I think that too, the weakening of the labor of the unions, because they know that we stay strong, they would have to stay in a certain position also. So we got to weaken this union so that we can do this outbreak, so that they can do what it is that their plan is, you know. So I think that that's part of it also too, is to continue to try to weaken those unions and get rid of those unions.
They didn't need fascism to do that. The unions are bending over backwards
Yeah.
with no beating.
They're retreating.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I mean, you know, it's almost that they don't need fascism because they're just giving it up. Oh, here, take the shirt off my back and my pants too.
But look at what all of the people that the workers have lost and where they are, foreclosure and eviction.
Yeah.
I mean, that in itself is demoralizing.
Yeah.
And those, you know, that's another tactic that I'm sure they're using against the people. What more demoralizing can that be than to lose your home? That'll take the breath out of anybody. That'll take the fight out of anyone. To lose your home, it'll take a while to recover from that. Just think of the millions of people that have gone through that experience. And so, yeah, you can be demoralized. Yes, you can.
That's
Because
right.
they can use tactics like that to demoralize you. Yes, they can. They take your house from you.
Like you said, you know, like snatching the rug up out from under you, you know, and you're not really ready for it, you know, but all along, they know they had a plan. But you just weren't expecting that plan.
And that's true because people are so focused on trying to survive, you can't convince them to resist. Here in Detroit.
That's
I see
right.
that. Does anyone agree?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Because they agree something is wrong. They agree the system is so wrong. And they're victims of it themselves, but they'll tell you, I don't have time to talk about that. I don't have time. They don't know that the workers can be victorious because they don't know there's another solution. They think this two-party system, capitalist system,
Just
this is just a hiccup.
Well, see, this is why the decisive difference, in my view, my reading of this, is that it's one thing for an individual, 10,000 attorneys individually trying to fight foreclosures. It's a different. The dialectical difference is that the organized work of a politically conscious, organized workers movement, workers and oppressed movement, such as an organization, such as Moratorium Now, or a party, to fight back effectively and decisively is what is going to be the decisive question.
Politically conscious.
We can all fight back individually, but they'll slaughter us individually. The only way to deal with this effectively is organized mass movement, workers movement.